Do. Hello, and welcome to the Breaking Free podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Francis. Today, I'm very grateful, very humble to be joined by men's coach Matt Castle. I told you I'd get Castle out. Matt's a fellow freedom of self-sabotage coach as well. Matt focuses a lot on men's health, separation. There's a lot of that going on in the world at the moment, Matt. So welcome to the show today. Very glad and grateful I found you in Jason's group, and just another one that's got an awesome story. So, Matt,
Mm.
share with my viewers, my listeners, your awesome story, and then we'll go off on some tangents. And I'm sure we're going to have a really awesome conversation today on Christmas Eve. Welcome.
Beautiful, brother. Yeah. Thank you for having me on here. And it's a pleasure to have the platform to share my experience with others that are in a similar situation. So, yeah. So, yeah. Basically, I went through separation 3 years ago. And during the 3 years after separation, there was a lot of reflection where I realized some of my behaviors. There was a huge awakening that happened. And I realized a lot of my behaviors and also my ex-wife's behaviors that contributed to the separation. If you fast forward to the present moment, now, um, I advertise to bring on these guys, and I speak to a lot of guys. They don't all work with me. They're not all in the headspace to work with me. But what I'm seeing is there is a lot of the same sort of scenarios coming up in all of them, whereby the women check out of the relationship largely before they actually separate, right? And so this led me to learn a little bit more about. I've really been inquisitive into women and what they want from a relationship and how to have a healthy relationship. So, this last 3 years has just been this really amazing journey where I've really got to know, because there's been a lot of separations, as you know, through 2020, there was a lot of separations. And I really got to know a lot of women and what they had experienced through their separation as well. So, yeah, what I was finding was there's these same things, and they're actually really basic, although everybody's got different situations and scenarios. A lot of them are the same in every situation and scenario. And so, what I do now is I work with guys just to help them actually get through after separation. It would be nice to actually get into the family home and work with the couples first so that we can keep the family together so the kids don't have to go through the separation.
Mm.
Um, and so, there's a lot that goes on inside the family home before the separation. And then after the separation, of course, the guys are caught blindsided because the women, for their own safety, they have to plan their exit. So they'll, pretend like everything's all fine, and then all of a sudden they're out because they have to plan their safety. And this catches guys blindsided, and then there's the kids and all this sort of thing. There's a whole lot of sequence of events that happen after that. So yeah, it's been a really amazing journey, Nathan, to experience all of this and to learn from others with real, you know, inquisitive nature, to learn from others that have gone through this situation as well,
Mm.
and reflection. The wisdom for me has come through reflection of my own situation, and I share quite openly. Those that know me and follow me on social media will know that I share very openly about my situation because I really want to help people to see, use my mistakes as their strengths.
Mm. Would you like to delve into some of those? Because I know you're very open on social media, but for my listeners and my viewers and my audience, what were some of those? You want to delve into them for us?
Some of the reflections or some of the strengths.
Everything.
Yeah, so okay. Wow, I don't know if we've got that much time.
Nah, it's all right.
Um, but yeah, look, a lot of the reflections are that, there is this behavior modification that's going on in the world. And,
Mm.
not to dive too deeply into that, in 2020, there was a really big event that everybody's well aware of. And you know, it caused everybody to act quite extremely, including myself. I went into a situation where I felt that I needed to protect the tribe. I needed to protect others in my area. So I started talking about things that led to basically a disconnect between my wife and I. Now, there's more to that disconnect, but to elaborate on that disconnect is that between the masculine and feminine, which is something that I didn't even know about in my marriage. I didn't really know about, I'd never really heard the masculine and the feminine described. A man and a woman, they fall in love, they get married, they have children. But the masculine and feminine is like this energetic, this kind of communication between a man and a woman. And it's something that I knew nothing about. So that disconnect is what I sort of focused a lot on in my reflection, because what happens is with as with marriage, with a long-term relationship, we get very complacent, and with the external pressures of society, for example, what we've learned through Jason Christoph's work, the media influence on our behavior. I was reflecting a lot on how the programs that I was watching were actually causing me to act like a child. And I've heard this term before, like in my marriage, during my marriage, the man child. I'd heard this talked about by older women. And so it really made me reflect on how this man child is gets into that state where he's, you know, basically self-sabotaging, drinking alcohol, smoking vapes, smoking cigarettes, marijuana, whatever it is, and also celebrating that in a way that is non-masculine. So for a woman, what I really realized, for a woman to actually feel safe in her masculine, because women think a lot more about their safety than men do, and in the respect that their environment, they need to feel safe in their environment. So in order to choose a good, healthy male, she needs to feel safe in his presence. And this is knowledge that I learned well after I separated from my ex-wife. If I had known that then, maybe I could have realized where my behavior was coming from and changed my behavior, which would have changed a few things. But for a woman to feel unsafe with the masculine because of his behaviors, she disconnects. And that's an energetic frequency that happens. And so, you know, this happens long before the separation, or it happens long before the the woman leaves the relationship, if you will. She leaves the relationship before she physically leaves, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And this has all been affirmed by other women that I've spoken to as well, which is, it really makes a lot of sense. So the behaviors inside the home have been causing this childlike behavior in men throughout the world. And we see it every day. The more, like, I work in the industry, so I'm seeing it. I'm talking to these guys. I'm analyzing their lives so that I can point out the areas of their lives that they could change to strengthen themselves. The other thing that happened during my separation is I realized through the law and how law was actually binding on man. And this was a really big point, because what I realized is that the law is binding on man through the child. The child is, basically it's for commerce purposes, for commercial purposes. We have a name that is a trade name. And for this child, every time that we produce the name, we become the child. So these two beliefs actually aligned for me. So I realized that in order to make changes, excuse me, in order to make positive changes in our relationships, we needed to kind of focus on, this main area of the problem, which is, inside the home, we've got men acting and behaving like a child. And then we've got, the corporations that run the world actually profiting from our situation or our behaviors, right? So we need to stop being a child. We need to stop childlike behavior. And this was where it got really exciting, Nathan, and you would resonate with this because when we got onto Jason Christoff and how he explained about the child mind and the safety mechanism that we all have, where our nervous system activates our fight or flight, which is the child mind, because up until age 7, we don't have a prefrontal cortex. We're operating completely on the subconscious mind. And so the subconscious mind is actually up until 7 years old is all that we're operating on. And then when we are constantly triggering our fight or flight, which society is constantly doing in our environment, most people anyway, watching the TV, it's, the poisons that we ingest, the toxic lifestyles that we lead, um, is activating this fight or flight. It's activating this child mind. So it's become a real passion of mine to actually help guys to realize how simple it is. And that is to really become consciously aware of your nervous system and your subconscious behaviors, reprogramming your subconscious behaviors. So it's really cool. Again, it's kind of, yeah, it's a shame that it's guys that are already separated. It would be really good to move further into helping people actually get through it, because I think personally, I'm a breathwork facilitator as well, and my intention through holding space and breathwork facilitation is to really bring the tribe together to allow people the safety and the space to be vulnerable with themselves and grow strong from that, if that makes sense. Because I think a lot of today's men, particularly, believe that we must be strong and we must hold our emotions. A strong masculine presence is has the potential to be, I guess, strong and empowered, and has the potential to cause harm, but he doesn't because he's in touch with his emotional intelligence, and he has the ability to actually shift his emotions more regularly at more ease.
Mm.
So yeah, bringing that tribe together and making the space for people to really realize, or to feel that connection with others around them, which I think is the answer. There's so much division in the world.
Yeah. And it's about putting those things aside, putting the pitchforks down and coming together for that one common goal or that one common whatever it is. Yeah. Just something I was just writing notes while you were talking. I've got a couple of things we're going to circle back on here. You were talking about before that you're finding men need to strengthen when you're analyzing their lives and they need to strengthen something. What's the most common thing you're finding in amongst the men you're talking to that they need to strengthen?
Um, Emotional strength is key,
Yeah, it's a big one.
right? So
Yeah,
we have to realize that we have emotions, firstly.
love it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like we have to really go. We're dealing with this childlike formation of men, and we are all in this together. Like I'm not attacking anybody. Um, I'm constantly working on that, but it is an emotional. Uh, the emotional pillar of strength is one of the key foundations of strength for men to realize that we do have emotions and we have the ability to regulate and manage them. And we also need to, I think, just like steel sharpens steel, I think we need to actually be able to, rub our emotions off on the other guys, and really open up. And I think that for me personally, in my personal experience growing up, that really hasn't been available. So boys, the boys tend to hide their emotions. They learn to push their emotions down.
yep,
You see it in children now as an adult,
yep,
having children at school. You see, the school. I mean, the schooling system, it almost does. I don't know if it's directly the schooling system that's pushing those emotions down, but the children there seem to be, they get to a certain age and they change. And that's usually around that 6 or 7 year old age where the emotion is not expressed quite so freely, especially in young boys. Because young boys, they express their emotions. I've got 2 young children. I've got 3 boys, and I've got two young boys, and one of my boys is very good with expressing his emotions, and my other boy was, but he's pulled back a little bit.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah,
That's that. I I found that the school system does do that to a point too, but it's also I reckon it's a generational sort of belief mental program of don't ask for help, suppress the emotions. I believe this is filtered through 3 or 4 generations ago. I believe it's a generational program that we're all here to break the spell of. Would you agree?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So, like to elaborate on that,
Mm.
yeah, breaking that generation spell for sure. We need to be able to speak our boundaries. Okay,
Yes.
and this is a big part for women as well. I think my ex-wife struggled to speak her boundaries in terms of what behaviors were and weren't accepted in terms of me trying to lead, because I was trying to lead as a male, saying we need to go in this direction and things like that. But for us to express, and this happens in commerce as well, where there's contracts, right? We are almost being conditioned as children to seek someone else's authority to make us feel safe instead of us actually being the author of our own story. And as children, if little Johnny does something wrong to me and I express the way, you know, then that's actually encouraged to go to somebody else. It's encouraged to go to the teacher to then basically say, this is not acceptable, blah, blah, blah. There's this blanket approach. Whereas if we were given the tools to actually go through that ourselves and see it from a higher perspective, I
Mm.
believe that we could develop more. And the higher perspective is the key here. It's not just having the cut and dry policies, which the entire planet is just totally programmed to operate on company policy rather than free thought and conscious thought. So, it's the rising consciousness. There's definitely a rising consciousness of a lot of us, and talking about it is key as well. And it, we've seemed to sort of focus on the childhood because the childhood is largely responsible for a lot of this. And then as an adult, when we're activating our fight or flight, we're entering those childlike coping mechanisms,
Yeah.
which is limiting us. It's really limiting us as a tribe, as a culture, as one people, because we're all infinite consciousness having this human experience. The only difference is in beliefs and information that we've received.
Yeah. Through the subconscious mind pathway. How can men start to begin to break free from this child mind? We both know the answer here, but there was a man or a boy watching this and they're resonating. How can someone begin to break free from that?
Yeah, physical health, um,
Yeah.
healthy rituals and customs. So when we
Yep.
don't even realize that sitting to eat is actually like a ritual and custom. When we sit to eat, there's an energetic frequency that we're absorbing from that food. And whether that food is actually dead food or alive food has a big impact on us as well. So, sourcing good, healthy food that actually has some energy to provide you some nutrients to help your consciousness evolve
Yeah.
and your body to actually repair. So yeah, having healthy rituals and customs, and this is something that I love teaching my children is spend time on yourself. They see me go out every day and I do my stretching and I do my meditation with music. I do a different style of meditation. It's a very tribal type of meditation, burning white sage, things like this.
Love
And it
it.
really just it pulls me back to my center. And I've had conversations. I invite women to come and speak to my clients when we have a group session on once a week. We have a group session, and I had this. I had a friend of mine, Sunny Ray, come along, and she shared with us, that um, that this was a really valuable. Shared with us that was a really valuable trait in a man. Sorry, I sort of lost my train of
You're
thought
right.
there, but that was a really positive outlook on, for men to actually have that purpose and to have that uh, the direction or the center, because there's so many distractions that pull a man from side to side. His focus must always be on bettering himself and his purpose, because otherwise he's distracted and he stays the same. And energetically, that's really unhealthy. And a woman will detach from that because she no longer feels safe with that man. And so, what happens, to elaborate on that as well, is that women have a way of, that I've recognized, have a way of poking at our weak points, right? And the child mind sees that as kind of an attack, rather than
Mm.
actually saying, oh, this is actually my woman telling me I need to work on these areas. Because the universe gives us all these messages, whether it comes through our partners, our women, our wives, our girlfriends, our mums, our sisters. The universe sends us these messages as men so that we can actually learn from those messages and grow. Yeah.
Yeah. I resonate with that. Yeah. Because it's recognizing those signs, right? And then if a man is emotionally intelligent, they're not going to be triggered by that woman. It's like, you're saying that as a chance for me to grow here. You're
Mm.
sort of out of that. So, and something that I've noticed too, Matt, to follow on with the emotional intelligence thing too, is being back in, like as I said to you off air, and a lot of my listeners and viewers now know that I'm back in that dating space again. And what I'm finding is that a lot of women are seeking that emotional intelligence in a man. Like
Mm.
even women younger than me in their 20s, like they're seeking that. So
Yeah.
it's a very interesting space to be in. So if there's a young person watching this that has absolutely no idea about emotional intelligence, what would be your advice to that young person to start? Because they could be very much on an app or on something, and they're seeing a lot of women are wanting this in a man. It's like if you're young and you're listening to this, like Matt, what would be your advice to that young person to start
Yeah.
to start the emotional intelligence and even stepping into that? Yeah, what would be your advice to that young man?
Inquisitive.
Yeah.
Be inquisitive. This is what I've always been. I've always really been inquisitive to learn from women, to learn what it is that they want. And I think that's part of the excitement for, building a healthy relationship as well, is that real inquisitive nature, and lean into it. Like, your emotions, a woman will test you because she wants to see how you handle under pressure, how your emotions are, because women are largely emotional, and there's probably lots of women that are going to watch this and question whether I'm saying the right thing. But women are very emotional. That's their strength. Men are not so emotional, and that's why we have this, basically, this connection, men and women. We strengthen each other. It's like two ends of the battery, the positive and the negative, the yin and the yang. And so, when you are able to actually hold the feminine and her emotional roller coaster that she goes through with her cycle of the moon, um, then that grounds you in your emotional stability as well, which is what she needs. And so we've been conditioned again since childhood to be these emotional wrecks. Men are emotional wrecks in a lot of ways, especially when they go through separation and they're blindsided by it. Really, they just want the support of the woman in their environment. And I will definitely say this too, because it just rings a bell with me. I've always said that a man's strength is amplified by having the backing of the woman in his life. And that might not just be his woman, just the woman in the community. The support of the woman around the men, gathering around the men at the moment, is really, really important, because we need that connection.
Yeah, we do. And that's a big one because society says, society and those that are in the shadows, it's all about that divide and conquer. destroy the family unit, divide humanity as much as possible. When in actual fact, it's us coming back together,
Yeah,
strength in
yeah,
numbers, right?
yeah, it is. And, we've been conditioned to think that we're all dangerous.
Yeah. Oh,
When I
yeah.
went through my separation, because of what I was speaking about, in terms of what was going on in 2020, I had my own views on that, and I was speaking that quite publicly, which they believed or they reframed to be dangerous,
Oh
dangerous for my
God.
wife, dangerous for my children, which I'm not a dangerous man in that respect. And so, we have to be careful that we are not actually creating this this fear, this danger.
Yeah. Yep.
We're actually too afraid to have relationships because we've been totally conditioned that it's really unsafe. The dating scene's unsafe. You need to just stay at home. You need to, lock your doors, and you just need to just lock yourself in the closet and
The big
just
one.
stay there because it's
Yeah.
safer. Instead of leaning into the danger, leaning into the nature, the universe, and really from a loving and inquisitive way where we can learn from each other and speak with beauty. And this is a beautiful thing too. I think young men, if I could send a message to young men getting married, or even men that are having trouble in their separation, trouble in their relationship, maybe heading towards separation, feeling that things aren't quite right. When you speak with beauty, when you speak beautifully, you get that back. It's the feedback loop. When you speak to your partner with beauty, because my ex-wife and I, we had a beautiful relationship, most of it. And when we spoke to each other, we spoke with beauty, and it was really beautiful, and I think that is a really big part, a big message for people, because a lot of the programming as well is teaching us to react rather than respond.
Yeah.
A lot of these lessons, it's the repetitive content. Be careful of the repetitive content and control that repetitive content so that you're speaking with beauty rather than with.
Not just beauty. I'll raise you one here. Authenticity too.
Mm,
You're
yeah,
not speaking like that TV show you're watching where they're having that conversation, but the programming in that TV show, that conversation will turn to a heated fight. Da 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 da. It's like they're not being. It's like you're watching that, so then you're having that moment. You're acting that program out. It's like that authenticity as well goes such a long, long way.
yeah, and also because of our tribal nature, how many times have you stood around a barbecue and somebody says something that's marginal
Mm.
and everybody laughs? And that laughter actually cements that that was safe for that guy to behave that way. And they're doing it because it's like
Yeah.
this this acceptance, it's this safety mechanism inside us that we all just agreed subconsciously that what was said just then was actually acceptable.
Yep.
And so, this is just an example of like this group pressure that we have, and we need to really check ourselves, especially in the group environment, whether we are actually still speaking from authenticity, or are we actually just saying, thinking, and doing what the other person will accept of me because I want to feel accepted, because that's where the safety lies, right?
Mhm.
So
100%.
yeah, a massive part of relationships is also around that too. And reflecting back on mine, I've openly spoken about my relationship because I want people to see the mistakes that I made and the mistakes that my ex-wife potentially made. But I take responsibility because I take responsibility for myself. And so a lot of and I want to grow as a man, so I have to take responsibility. So a lot of those behaviors were me actually feeling unsafe or weak. I was bonding with these other, whether it was people or television shows. I was bonding in a way that I was then repeating what was being said in order to stay safe instead of being my true authentic self. And that came across as weak, right? So, big reflections on that. And I think a lot of people do that. They're
Yeah.
just not aware of it. I became aware of it very quickly, and I just didn't have the tools until I met Jason to actually change some of those behaviors. And it takes work. It really
Yeah.
does. We're surrounded by it.
There we are. And it's having that self-reflection too, because I can resonate a lot with that as well over the last few years that I was just saying things I picked up in the movies or picked up around my old tribe and different things. I'm like, and once I gained that conscious awareness, you sort of ask that question, you go, well, is that true to me? Is that me being true to myself? Or was that
Mm.
picked up on because I was, seeking that safety and that comfort and that acceptance in the tribe? It's like, well, yeah, it's like having that inner dialogue, that inner conversation with yourself of what is actually true to me and the things I say and the things I do each day. Like, what's true to me and what was put there by someone else or something else. And once you can
Yeah.
sort of you'd agree with this. Once you can sort of answer, not even sort of, once you can answer that question honestly and openly, is when you can start to change, but also discover your true authentic self and how you want to step out into the world. I find that's an important thing for men as well, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah. And that
Yeah,
comes back to the boundaries that I was talking about before.
100%.
But we all need boundaries around contracts that are offered to us. Like we're dragged into contracts without even our conscious awareness.
Yeah,
Even walking past a shoe shop, you know, imagine walking past a shoe shop and the attendants come out and they tackle you and apprehend you and they drag you in and make you buy a shoe. In some ways, that is actually what's happening
mm,
on a subconscious level. People aren't aware of it, and that's a really extreme way of describing it. But more or less, that is what's happening. People are being pushed, their boundaries are being pushed, and it's very hard because of the group pressure to assert your boundaries, to say, I'm not comfortable with that. And like in the dating scene again, when you're dating a potential partner and you see red flags, but you continue dating the person anyway, that's the boundaries, that's that authenticity being pushed aside
yes.
because of some sort of social conditioning that I must have a partner, otherwise I'm seen as a loser or
Yeah.
whatever, you know.
That's
So
a
it's
big
all
one. That's a big one. Because if you're in that space right now, it's about recognizing those red flags, seeing those boundaries, and having trust in that process, having trust in yourself that 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 will come into your life. The more you put up those boundaries and what you'll accept and what you won't accept, the more chance that you'll draw that in, right, on that energetic level.
yeah, it's like the shoe attendant coming out into the forecourt of the of if you're walking through a big shopping center or something, and you're getting tackled by these shoe attendants and apprehended and dragged in there and sold these shoes.
Mm.
It's where do you say, actually, I don't want these shoes. In fact, I didn't even come here for shoes.
Yeah.
So can you leave me alone? It's probably a little bit more to do with, I guess, the commercial realm and the law rather than relationships, maybe, but it still comes back to boundaries. It still
Yeah,
comes back to the
and
past.
using that word and saying no.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Actually, being comfortable, actually celebrating others that do it. And that's something that I've started doing now too. When others actually say no and I can see that maybe I was trying to get them to, um, you know, do something, behave in a way that I wanted them to do, and they would say no, or they would do whatever they wanted to and exert their boundaries. For me, that was like energetically, I'm celebrating that. I'm like, yeah, man, awesome. I love that. Because it happens a bit with the coaching with the guys as well. Um, and the one of the mentors that I speak with quite a bit, he's very good at it. And I celebrate that because I think that that's something that we all need to work on. Um, we're not all sort of taught that at school, like I said earlier. So
Yeah.
it's
The,
hard to learn it later in life.
we're taught to people please and to go along and get along,
Yeah.
to fit in, to blend in, and to truthfully, this might sound harsh, but to be someone that we're not.
And I talk a lot about this too. Jason
Mm.
Christoph talks about it, living a lie. So
Yeah.
when we live a lie, the pain gets loud, and this happens a lot in relationships, right? When we're living a lie, if we're with somebody, we saw the red flags, we went ahead with it anyway, and we've ended up with all of this pain.
Yeah.
And that pain's a teacher because, and even society as a whole is quite painful now. A lot of people are
Yeah.
struggling financially. A lot of people are struggling with relationships, love, intimate relationships, family, friends. There's a lot going on in the world, and that's because there's pain.
Yes.
We've been taught what we've been taught is largely the opposite of really what we're finding now, as certainly my generation anyway, and others, the younger generation are starting to get it as well because everyone's wondering what's going on. How, if we're so evolved and advanced, then why is everybody sick and why is everybody breaking up? Why are children struggling with single parent homes? Why has dad disappeared and got on drugs and drinking himself into an early grave? Why are guys ram raiding the corner dairy? And then like there's so many signs of pain around
Yes.
us, but people are just ignoring it and numbing the pain. And that pain is actually the universe saying to us, we need to make some changes.
Mm. And it's having the courage and the bravery and the there's another word there, but it will come, and the resilience and the discipline to make those changes, right?
Mm,
Because once those changes are made, everything changes. It creates that ripple through not only your own life, but those around you and those that are in that space with you. It changes literally everything.
mm,
It might seem like things are falling apart when you start to make those changes. That's because everything that's no longer serving you is falling away.
yeah,
That could be people, places, habits, all these things. But then you start to make those changes, and then you'll start seeing the growth, and you'll start seeing the progress, and people will come into your life that will expand you, that will grow you, right? Where you're not having those yeah, it's just a beautiful journey, right? But you're actually just setting out that intention, and that setting out that simple intention can create the biggest ripple.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. We are energetic beings, Nathan, as you know.
Mm.
And so whatever we whatever we are doing in the community or in the environment is actually sending some sort of morphic resonance to others in the community as well. So, our behaviors when we clean ourselves up, and this is the main form, the emotional stability of a man comes from being clean and healthy.
I agree.
So, you know, in order to really start checking our emotions and recognizing them with conscious awareness, um, we actually we actually need to take care of our vessel as well. And this is largely what I see with guys that are coming to me for help is that their vessels have got very broken down,
Yeah.
the body's out of shape, and the more other people pull away from them, the more they sort of try and they push. And again, that energy doesn't lie. When you're pushing and you're trying, it's very unattractive and it just pushes people away further. So, guys that are really trying to get their wife back and all this without actually realizing that where it starts is actually here with my vessel.
Yeah.
And becoming hydrated, Dr. Barbara O'Neill, she's been amazing, influential for me.
Same.
Uh, you know, yeah, she's amazing. She's, the just such simple things like Celtic sea salt
I
can
was just
help.
about to say that.
Loves, yeah, loves her Celtic sea salt.
Yeah, I have a bag of it. I make sure I always got a bag of it at home, so I'm always sucking on it, eating it, putting it in water. Yeah,
Yeah,
cooking with
yeah.
yeah,
I eat a lot. I eat a lot of it.
yeah,
Probably up to about 20 grams a day, which is a
yeah.
lot of salt. And we've been told that salt is not
Clogs
a
up
good
your
thing.
arteries.
Yeah, yeah. So, the thing with salt is the table salt, sodium chloride, if you inject that mix it with water and inject it into the bloodstream, it would kill you instantly. So, why would you even eat it?
Yep.
But, the Celtic sea salt is harvested traditionally, and it has three different types of magnesium. It's got the nutrition and the minerals in it. 82 out of the 92 available in the ocean. We're salty beings.
We are.
When we sweat, it's salty.
Yeah.
So we're losing a lot of salt. We need to be taking it in, and therefore it allows the hydration to improve. And then you've got fats. The brain is the fattiest organ in the body. And then we had this low fat diet that was encouraged in the 90s, or late 80s, early 90s. And all of a sudden, everybody's going on this no fat, low fat, or no fat diet where the brain's just shriveling up. Like it's like our brain has actually kind of been targeted in a way by these corporations that are seeking to do business with our lives.
Mm.
And to really get in touch with our emotional stability and have healthy relationships, we need to really focus on improving brain health and how it operating, making sure that it's operating as clean and healthy as it can. So it needs to be given the nutrition and the building blocks, to ensure that the cells are actually healthy,
Mm.
so that we've got the communication happening between the brain cells and the human body, the nervous system. Because we are
Yep.
actually really intelligent beings. We're very intuitive. We're very, energetic beings. We communicate on an energetic level. But there's so many things that are interfering with that it's really hard to have healthy relationships because there's so much interference with that natural dance between the feminine and masculine.
Yeah, 100% agree.
Mm,
Matt, w- just to summarize all of that, thank you for jumping on and sharing all you shared today. It was a really awesome conversation.
cool.
To sort of give a final word, what would you say to as like a final piece of advice for a man that's listening and watching right now that might be very well in a similar boat to you
Mm.
3 or 4 years ago, or the opposite end of the scale, they're trying to work on things.
Listen to the messages
Mm,
with inquiry. Inquire into the messages. Your wife is telling you what she's speaking to you is a message. It's not. She's not having a go at you. They're a message. So how you interpret that and how you use that as your strength, that is where the strength lies. Um, yeah, and really adopt healthy rituals and customs. Be aware of what you put into your mouth. Discipline around your physical health and your mental health. Like
yeah,
look after yourself. Spend some time with yourself. Don't run off with the boys drinking booze, going fishing, things like that. Spend a little bit of time each day, and daily has definitely worked well for me, where you actually sit with yourself. You listen to some healthy music, do meditation, just something that really pulls you into your purpose. But yeah, be inquisitive and inquire into those messages. It may well save your marriage.
love that piece of advice, mate. That's awesome. Matt, where can people find you?
Yeah, so my website is myselfsabotagecoaching.com, or you can just search up Matt Castle on Facebook, Instagram, and yeah, follow me on Facebook. And I'm always putting little cue cards out there for people to sort of reflect on where they're at and what they can possibly do to improve their lives.
Love it, mate. We'll have to circle back and do another one soon in the new year, I think, because that was really awesome. We can talk more about some other topics as well if you're keen to jump back on, mate.
Absolutely, Nathan. No, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me on. Keep
Everyone, go
great.
give Matt a follow. Go check out his content. Go on his website. Matt's got, yeah, wealth of knowledge and wealth of experience in that space. So, Matt, thank you for all that you're doing. Thank you for all you shared today. And we will circle back and we'll talk very soon. Everyone out there, have a well, actually, it'll be Happy New Year by the time this goes out. So have an awesome 2025. This podcast is going to go off in a really awesome direction. I can't wait to share with all you guys. So I'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you again, Matt. We are over and out. Done.